the trend for this year has been more engagement, more communications, but not more trust. And so what that means is you still have plenty of areas that the countries are unhappy with each other, but that when there is conflict, the conflict does not escalate out of control. Rather, the escalations are targeted and calibrated. So we can say that the relationship is getting worse. It's true, but it's getting worse quite slowly. And there's more stability to the relationship than there was, for example, when we saw the balloon floating over the United States, or when we saw Pelosi, the former speaker, make her trip to Taiwan. So it's really whether you see it as glass half full or half empty, but there's a lot more intentionality to this relationship today than there has been over the past several years.
Yes, Balloon Gate, of course, we know, yes, there's been a lot more engagement and visits following that event. But I'm curious because when you say more engagement, more communication, sometimes is the silent treatment, is that definitely worse when we had a lack of engagement?
Yeah, it's worse. I promise you it's worse. When you don't have military-to-military conversations, so that if something goes wrong, they're not talking to each other and they can misinterpret it, it's absolutely worse. One of the reasons why the U.S.-China relationship over Taiwan is more stable than, say, with the Philippines, the Second Thomas Shoal, the South China Sea, is because for 50 years, the U.S. and China know each other's red lines. They know what the challenges are in the relationship. They communicate constantly. So it's very easy to make extremely nuanced calibrations up and down in the tension of the relationship. It's why after we had an election a couple months ago that didn't go the way China wanted in the Taiwanese elections, that the Chinese response wasn't a strong and sudden escalation that brought the two sides to crises, nor will it be next month when former Vice President Lee becomes President Lee of Taiwan in his inauguration. It's always better to have more engagement, more conversations, especially when you don't trust each other. I mean, really what Biden has tried to do is make sure that if there are problems in the relationship, that China's not surprised. They don't find out from CNN or from Fox, that they find out directly from the interlocutors, that they show a level of respect. And the Chinese government has appreciated that. I do think that we have more stability in the relationship today than we did before the Woodside Summit in November, when Xi and Biden last met for several hours face to face.
Ian, in terms of silence being worse, we're probably going to get the opposite of silence pretty soon as we head into election season coming up in November in the US. One could expect the anti-China rhetoric could get pretty hot. When this kind of thing happens, is there a risk of causing lasting damage to the relationship, or does China just tend to view politics as politics?
You know, there is, but there's not as much pressure on the Americans to do that. I mean, frankly, the fact that the relationship has stabilized without Biden giving away the store, he hasn't pulled back on tariffs, for example, that were put in under Trump. He hasn't pulled back on export controls on semiconductors. You've got a new investigation into Chinese shipbuilding, which is being opened right now. You mentioned TikTok as well. You've got $2 billion of military support that's heading over to Taiwan as part of the $95 billion package now working its way through Senate. I mean, it's not as if Biden's taking a lot of inbound criticism from the Republicans on being too soft on China. It is one of the very few areas of foreign policy, not Russia, Ukraine, not the Middle East, Lord knows not the border issue. Biden's getting criticized from the Republicans on almost everything in foreign policy, but not on China. And that actually gives him a little bit more flexibility, more room to run in this election period on that specific relationship.
Yeah, in terms of the TikTok question, we did hear from Donald Trump blaming President Biden for what could amount to a TikTok ban. But of course, Trump himself tried to force the sale of TikTok when he was in power. So can you say with any certainty what a potential second Trump presidency would mean for the future of TikTok?
Well, I think as long as Trump continues to get a lot of money from people that want TikTok not to be banned, that he's going to stay in that camp. I mean, you're right. That's a 180 flip from Trump, but it's very consistent. He usually is willing to say whatever is required to go to the highest bidder in terms of his lobbyists and his donors, especially when he has to spend so much money on legal fees. While he's contesting this campaign. So I think that's the most relevant, in fact, perhaps the only relevant data point that describes why Trump is in a different position right now.